Communities organized and ready for emergencies. CORE is a region-by-region program of the ODPM, and it's designed to reach you wherever you are once you're willing to be informed about preparedness. Hello, I'm Nayat Lee. You can get all the information and resources you need before and after an emergency or disaster. It's all available from the ODPM and the Disaster Management Unit of your regional corporation. Before and after an emergency, this is your #1 resource. But remember though, that during an emergency, you and your family are on your own, and it may take hours or days before help arrives.
But don't be scared. Be prepared for if and when that happens. I'm People Maurice. Come rain or shine, we're coming to your region to help you and your community get organized and ready for any emergency. Welcome to CORE. Today we're in San Fernando.
San Fernando is a very densely populated area, which means that in an emergency, a very large number of people will be affected, all at the same time. This situation can easily become volatile.
Remaining calm will be the most important thing to do at this time. Knowing beforehand what you are going to do is the key to survival if you find yourself in danger in a city like San Fernando.
San Fernando is the second city of Trinidad and Tobago and has a very high population density. And this is made up of not only residents of San Fernando, but also transient population. So people who don't live in the area commute to and from there daily for work, shopping, etc. This means that we need to protect not just the residents of San Fernando, but the commuters as well, which is why it's important to not just know about your community and your home, but also areas in Trinidad where you may spend a lot of time. If you don't live in San Fernando, but you find yourself there on a daily basis for work or school, one thing you can do to be prepared is to be aware of your evacuation or egress routes out of the city. For example, if there's a flood and you know the route that you usually take to get home is blocked or compromised, you should know what an alternate route is to get to your area of safety, like your home. Also, you should be aware of what are the different shelters within San Fernando. In the event that you are unable to leave and you are asked to find shelter, you should be aware of what those shelters are. Again, if you're a resident, you should be prepared for any disaster that were to come your way. Have your emergency plan, your family emergency plan, and if you have a nice cohesive community, establishing a community emergency response plan could actually be very beneficial to you. Protect your home using structural and non-structural mitigation, and these can be very simple.
Mitigation simply means anything you do to protect you, your family, and your home from the impact of hazards or disasters. There are two types of mitigation. Hard mitigation is structural and includes renovations, improvements, or reinforcement of your physical home. Soft mitigation is non-structural, which means knowing your threats, having an emergency plan, preparing an emergency kit that meets your family's needs for 3 days. If you are not ready for a disaster, most likely you will panic and reduce your chances of survival.
Communities organized and ready for emergencies.
From Union to GovView, your community needs an emergency plan.
Get your neighbors together and discuss the areas where you think your community is lacking when it comes to disaster preparedness.
Because of the urban nature of San Fernando, the term community might be a little bit different from how it would in like a more rural area. And we have to start thinking outside of the box. So San Fernando, you have like the business community. Your entire building could be considered a community. For example, you have these buildings where different agencies or different shops or businesses operate on the different floors. All businesses and organizations should have an emergency plan, which should detail evacuation routes and a muster point. And a muster point is simply an area that all the staff in the building or all the occupants in the building could go to in the event of an emergency and be away from a potential threat. A muster point needs to be in an area that's accessible, and we need to remember that there are all types of people in the city. So it should be accessible to people with special needs or disabilities.
To minimize flood damage to your building or home, you can head to your city corporation to obtain flood bags free of charge.
Don't procrastinate. If a flood watch is issued, put your sandbags in place in order to reduce the risk of property damage.
There's no too young when it comes to integrating disaster management into your family life and getting your children involved. Because what we're aiming to do is build a culture of safety. We don't want it to be like a lesson that the children have to learn and then regurgitate. We want it to be a way of life. So it's their natural instinct to just know that, you know, I need to do these things to make sure my home is prepared. It needs to be second nature almost, not a school lesson that you have to learn and revise and get tested on and forget about. And you can teach a 3-year-old or 4-year-old to dial 511, and you'd be surprised if you are trapped or you can't get to the phone. You ask her to dial 511, and anything like that could happen, and you need to be prepared for any scenario. So what we want to do is build a culture of disaster preparedness.
During the holiday season, there's a tendency to relax the rules concerning fire safety. This is a mistake. A fire can completely destroy your home, possibly even more than a hurricane, an earthquake, or flooding.
Fires are the second most frequently occurring hazard in San Fernando.
Most fires are man-made and are therefore preventable.
The biggest challenge we have really is the Christmas tree lights, one, and the fireworks. The selling of fireworks tends to be a very, very dangerous kind of activities that goes on around the Christmas time, because you find people sell fireworks in car parks under tents, which is not really the approved way, because if you have some sort of disturbance, it will obviously affect the entire compound. The Christmas trees, of course, people tend to buy a lot of lights. We see recently where people trying to outdo each other and see if they can have 1 million lights, and Trinidad tend to go into that mood and trying to emulate the rest of countries in the world. Do you have the position of people buying lights for indoor and put them outside? Obviously, it's going to cause a serious problem in the long run. So those are the two major things that we deal with in the fire service when it comes to safety at Christmas time.
High winds are the third most frequently occurring hazard in San Fernando. Do not panic. Seek shelter and wait it out.
Of all the hazards we've mentioned so far, none of them can happen as suddenly as an earthquake.
Earthquakes can strike at any time, but your best defense is to keep calm. Remember, drop, cover, and hold on.
And yes, even if you're in a tall building, you still need to drop, cover, and hold on.
Absolutely do not try to leave a tall building while it's still shaking.
Try to move away from a lot of glass. If there's the entire glass windows and stuff, move away from it, then duck, cover, and hold on, because you don't want it to shatter and cut you. Also, a lot of people might be tempted to rush down the stairs and get into the elevator. You should not do that, because in an elevator, it can, freeze and be jammed if the building is compromised, and you might be trapped there, making it harder for search and rescue to get you out. Also, people have to remember that with the ground shaking, it doesn't last long. It might feel like it's a long time, but in many instances, it's a few seconds. If you try to run out, it's going to take you more than a minute to get out of the building, especially in high-rise offices. And there's a reason we say duck, cover, and hold on. Duck is to put yourself under a desk or a table that will cushion you from the blow of falling objects. Cover, you put your hands out like that, and you're covering your face and your stomach, so your vital organs are being protected. And hold on would be like that. And you're holding on because all the rocking and swaying could actually push you and pull you around and slide you out of your place of safety. So you duck, you cover, you hold on until the shaking has stopped, and then you have to be very careful because there can also be aftershocks. If you know that there's a potential for earthquakes in Trinidad, which there is, you should just little things about the design of your home can be done to make it safer. For example, you don't want to have a lot of shelves with sharp objects, because with the rocking and the swaying, these can fall and cause injury to someone. Get kids involved in as well. Making your emergency kit can be a lot of fun. You could turn it into a family project and you have the kids, paint the bucket and find things and do a treasure hunt to build your kit. It does not have to be very, very serious or expensive. You can make it fun, and at the same time, getting children involved teaches them to be prepared, and you are not always going to be with your children. So you need to know that if they are out there on their own, they know how to handle themselves. And we see very good examples of that in Japan. 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds know to duck, cover, and hold on. What they've done is built a culture of safety within their youth, and that's what Trinidad needs to move towards, because we are only prepared as our communities are.
An earthquake can sometimes cause other events.
Because San Fernando is on a coastline, people who live and work here need to be on alert for tsunamis after an earthquake.
The most important thing you can do with a tsunami is be educated, because we might not have enough time to get the message across that it's coming. So you need to know the signs, and there are 3 senses that you have to pull upon. If you see the sea retreating, and I don't just mean the way it retreats for low tide. I mean if the ocean pulls back so much that you see parts of the shore that you never saw before. You might see fish trashing around on the sand. That's a big hint that you need to get away, right? If you hear a loud noise, and not like a car backfiring, like a loud significant thing that's different, you know that you should probably be a bit more cautious. And if you feel the ground shaking, these are the signs. So see, hear, feel, and then you know that you need to take steps to get away from the coastline. And I don't mean get away parallel. You need to move further inland or go to a higher area. So when you see these signs, you should try to get at least 30 meters high or at least 3 kilometers inland.
The San Fernando Corporation has very unique considerations because of how near it is to the Point-A-Pierre refinery.
Hazards very rarely affect one area by itself. And in severe situations, hazards can actually flow from one municipality to another. San Fernando borders the Cuba-Tabaquí-Talpara municipality. And to be more specific, the dividing line is a river, and on one side you have the Point-A-Pierre industrial area, and then you have a small fence line community on the other side. Should there be a major event happening, like an explosion, a leak, an accident in the Petrotrin area, there's a very strong likelihood that this could actually spread to affect San Fernando, which is why we need to be aware of not just our threats, but the threats in the surrounding areas as well.
So San Fernando, please work with the City Corporation and the ODPM to make your community safe.
Know your risks, make a plan, and stay calm.
And remember that before help comes to you, you are your own first responder.
I'm Keith Maurice.
I'm Nayat Lee. Stay safe and keep good.